biggest question in the league. Will Giannis be a Buck by the time the 2026 season starts? Let's figure out the Bucks' plan on this edition of The Nest. Hello everybody, welcome back to The Nest Star XP. My name is Robin, welcoming you back as we continue to rebuild NBA teams, and we finally get into one of the teams that I've been looking forward to most to rebuilding because they have a lot of questions when it comes to their roster and where their future is going, and that is obviously the Milwaukee Bucks. And the big question, obviously, like I said, is Giannis going to be a Buck? Is he getting traded? Is he going to request a trade? I don't know just yet, but we will get into that in just a second. But before we get into it, again, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the subscribe button, go check out the Instagram, the TikTok, all of that jazz, continuing to post playoff content, but I'm also continuing to post rebuilds like this, covering each NBA team. So if you haven't found your NBA team yet, go look for it. If it's not there, it'll be coming soon, just stay tuned. Okay, like I said with the Bucks, there's two very different courses when it comes to what they're going to do, and the big question is, okay, are they going with Giannis, or are they going without Giannis? And because of that, much like the Suns rebuild that I did previously, this rebuild is going to cover two different courses, where one course is with Giannis and one course is without Giannis. And you'll notice that the Giannis course is a lot simpler and a lot more streamlined, which is odd to say, but we will get into that first in just a second. But either one of these will work. There's obviously a middle ground where you can kind of do a mix of these both, but I don't think if you're going to go down either of these routes, you need to commit fully to either of these routes. You don't want to have a middle ground. You don't want to be passive, because that's how you end up coasting in the middle ground. That's not what you want if you're the Milwaukee Bucks. So first off, going down the Giannis route, there's only a couple of minor changes I would make. They obviously don't have a ton of salary cap space. They don't have a ton of picks or anything like that. They do have the 10th overall pick, but other than that, they don't really have much improvement to change the roster. But in all honesty, I kind of like the roster that they do have. I think just some minor changes and then some minor additives would be great for the team. So what does that look like? First off, I went ahead and I took their 10th overall pick and I traded it. The reason I did this is because if you're going to compete, you don't need another young prospect. You can get a young prospect back for the 10th pick, obviously, if you wanted to, but I went ahead and traded it so you can continue to compete and compete well. So the pick I ended up going with is I ended up trading the 10th overall pick plus Kyle Kuzma's contract, which is a rough contract that messes with their cap space a little bit. It's also a salary match. And I traded that to the New Orleans Pelicans for Herb Jones, Micah Peavy, and Jordan Hawkins. And you can add in or replace Micah Peavy with Carlo Makovich, Bryce McGowens if he agrees to this contract. Basically, whatever third role player that you kind of want. I think Micah Peavy works because he's also relatively young, but if you want a Carlo Makovich, he's still very young, and he also fits with this team probably a little bit better. But he has a team option or a player option, I believe, on his contract. That's why I didn't include him in this one. But regardless, why would either team do this trade? Obviously, like I said, if you're the Bucks, you get an all-NBA caliber defender in Herb Jones, who's played in a role similar to what he'd be playing here with Zion and the Pelicans, and now he's going to be playing here with the Bucks. I think he would fit beautifully in that role. And then you get Jordan Hawkins, who's a young player. He's been very rough the last couple of years, but he showed some flashes of borderline stardom coming into the league. And I do think that I don't think he's going to be a pivotal piece or anything. He's not like a game changer in this. And if you didn't want to include him at all, don't include him at all. You could easily just waive him or something like that. But I do think that if you were to go and get him, he could be a possible bench piece for you, because he is a shooter and you need more shooters around Giannis. So I wouldn't mind the Bucks going and getting him. And then again, Micah Peavy, Carlo Makovich is just another young guy that you can throw into the rotation as needed and possibly grow with, and he can just play some nice rotational minutes. Other than that, I would just sign Lonzo Ball and then either Nikola Vucevic or Jay Huff, whichever is available. I don't think Jay Huff is going to be released by the Pacers, but Nikola Vucevic might be released by Celtics, and you can probably get him for relatively cheap. Or if not, just sign a solid backup center, whether that's Thomas Bryant if he's still in the league. Thomas Bryant, Jalen Williams probably isn't leaving the Thunder, but any of those centers will work. Just Nikola Vucevic, I think, is the best option, if not Jay Huff, because of his stretchability, and being a stretch big off the bench will be big for Giannis. So that's that. And that's other than that, that's maybe some minor changes, but that's about it for the core transition with this team. I didn't make a ton of changes. That's mainly because this team, I kind of like where they're at right now. I think they have a lot of really good talent, and I think a healthy Giannis and then some better coaching. No offense, not trying to throw strays at Doc Rivers, but Taylor Jenkins' coaching will be huge for this team, along with this roster, which looks something like this. So Ryan Rollins and KPJ will continue to run the backcourt positions. I have Ryan Rollins run the point guard and KPJ running the two, but I know Bucks fans are like torn. They think that KPJ is the point guard and Ryan Rollins is the shooting guard. Whichever, those two are running the backcourt. And then Herb Jones is running the 3 spot with Giannis at the 4 spot and Miles Turner starting at the 5. And then off the bench, you obviously have Lonzo Ball running that backup point guard position. I think he's very well suited to be that backup point guard with Giannis. Just a nice defensive guy. Maybe he can find his shot back. If not, defense, playmaking, that's all you need in that point guard position. You get AJ Green and Ousmane Dieng running the wing positions off the bench, and then Bobby Portis and Jay Huff or Nikola Vucevic or whatever center you sign running the 4 and the 5 spot off the bench. And then Pete Nance Jr., if you wanted to give him some minutes, he could play the 4 the 5 instead of Ousmane Dieng, or if you can't find a center, Pete Nance would also work in that regard. But yeah, that's the team. It's not a ton of changes. I don't know, because there's not much that can be done, honestly. I tried to do more with this team, but because of Giannis's contract and Miles Turner's contract and Kyle Kuzma's contract, there wasn't a lot that can be done. And that's another reason why the 10th overall pick trade, that's another reason why they didn't get like a massive return for that, because of Kyle Kuzma's contract. Getting off of that also costs some money. It doesn't help the Pelicans to take on Kyle Kuzma's contract, if that makes sense. So I went with this. It's not the best rebuild I could do, honestly, but I think for the sake of their contract and their situation, I think this is the best route they could go down for this continuing to contention. And the next one, this is the big one. This is the route they go down if they move off of Giannis. And there's a lot of things that you can do with it, and there's a lot of trades that you could obviously go in, try and find, obviously the Celtics for Jaylen Brown has been the talk of the town recently. There's been talks with other teams like the OKC Thunder, like the San Antonio Spurs, or things like that. I ended up going with one with the Miami Heat because I think that people are also talking about it. Don't get me wrong. It's not completely unique, but it's the one that I think best fits both teams, and I also think it's the one that I think Milwaukee needs the most in this instance. So what does it look like? So the Heat will obviously acquire Giannis Antetokounmpo, and they will give up Tyler Hero, Nikola Jovic, Kelly Ware, Kasparis Yakochonis, and then 3 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and then picks 13 and 41. It's a massive haul for Giannis. You get a borderline star in Tyler Hero. You get young prospects in Kelly Ware and Kasp to help your future, and then Nikola Jovic is mainly just financial compensation and things like that. And then you get picks 13 and 41. That'll help you a ton. The next thing I went ahead and traded Miles Turner. I think if you're rebuilding, he can easily go. I think a lot of teams will go for him, and I did this in a 3-team trade with the Grizzlies and the Pelicans, because as a Pelicans fan, I can say that we have been talking a lot that if we can get Miles Turner for relatively cheap, that would be a huge boost for us, and I do think that this is the way that we could do it, but I also think it's an easy way for the Bucks to get off his contract and get some decent talent back for it for future trades later on, and it'll look something like this. So like I said, the Pelicans will acquire Miles Turner, the Grizzlies will acquire Jordan Poole from the Pelicans, as well as some draft compensation, and the Bucks will acquire Santi Aldama, Ty Jerome, and Yves Missi. Now, why would the Bucks make this trade? Obviously, it's not a ton for Miles Turner, but you get an extremely young prospect in Yves Missi. You get Ty Jerome, who averaged really good numbers to end off the season last year, and then Santi Aldama is mainly just salary match. But you get those two, and you can either move off them later on for some better draft compensation or things like that, or at least in Ty Jerome's case, or Yves Missi can turn into a really nice center for you for the future. So that's why you go with that. And you can also obviously get pick 58 and future seconds that go to the Grizzlies and things like that if they wanted it. But this is the core of what the trade would look like. Maybe some draft compensation flying between the Bucks and the Grizzlies or something like that. The next trade I would go with is moving off of Bobby Portis. You're not going to get a ton back for him, but I went ahead and I made this trade, which is Jonathan Isaac, Noah Penda, and 3 second-round picks for Bobby Portis to go to the Magic. The Magic need more shooting, and Bobby Portis is a good guy that can just be a good shooter for them. They get off of Jonathan Isaac's contract, and if you're the Bucks, you can waive Jonathan Isaac and only and clear like 10 million in cap space with his non-guaranteed contract, which would be huge for them. It's a good trade, and you get off Bobby Portis and you clear some cap space in the process. So, pretty simple trade. And now, when it's time for like the draft to start coming up, you can make some trades to try and get yourself in better position for the future. So the first thing I would do is I would trade the 41st pick that you got from the Giannis trade, plus Kevin Porter Jr. and Ty Jerome, and you go send them to Boston for pick 27. That may be underselling pick 27 a little bit, or overselling pick 27 a little bit, but I think Boston will definitely take this first chance they get, and then you get pick 27 out of it. And then you can trade pick 27 plus Tyler Hero, also from the Giannis trade, for Brandon Podziemski, Moody, and pick 11. Or you may be able to just get, I don't know if you'll be able to get all three of those, but you may be able to get at the very least Moody and 11, and then maybe get Potts as well, who will be a young prospect for you for the future as well. So pretty easy trade. You get pick 11 out of it, which is the big thing, and the Warriors obviously get Tyler Hero for it. And then there's other options. You can obviously just keep pick 27, but in this instance, I have them getting pick 11. And so they end up with picks 10, 11, and 13, which is huge for them because that's three prospects that you can possibly build around for the future. Not going to be amazing prospects, but the picks I have, I think, would be huge for them because they're young developmental talents that can be huge and develop into something really good for them. So the three players that I would try and pick at 10, 11, and 13 are Nate Ament, who should still be there because he's a forward. He's athletic. He can develop into something kind of like a Giannis type. If not, he can develop into maybe like a Kawhi Leonard type. Regardless, he will be a solid player for you. With the 11th or 13th pick, you can go either or. You take Koa Pete with the 11th pick. And he's a guy that was originally ranked very high earlier in his drafting process and things like that, and he's since fallen off. So I think you can get a little steal. He can be a solid guy for you. And worst case scenario, he's a bust, but I think he can be good for you. And then with the 13th pick, you get Yaxel Lendenborg. I'm butchering the name, but very, very nice. I think he's like a power forward center. He's a big man, but he can be extremely good for you because he's another developmental things. These are all guys that you can develop. They'll take time. They're young. They're not older, so you have a ton of time to develop them and things like that. It's kind of like the same Giannis prototype where you draft them insanely young and then hope to develop into something. Now, am I thinking that all three of these guys are going to develop into Giannis? Obviously not. I'm not that stupid. But if you get three guys that are extremely young, you have the opportunity to get at least one of them into that borderline stardom, if not stardom, and the other two, worst case scenario, develop into solid role players or develop into complete busts. Whatever the case may be, those are the picks I would make. And if you keep pick 27 and you don't trade it and Hero, then you can just take Amari Allen. Same deal with him, young guy, developmental process. And other than that, yeah, that's about it for the Milwaukee Bucks. Again, there wasn't a ton. Either way, there wasn't a ton that I could do with them because of their processes, mainly just trading Giannis, trading Bobby, trading Miles Turner, and things like that. You can move off some of the guys like AJ Green as well, but I have them keeping those guys for now and just moving off of them at a later time and letting teams come to them if they are interested in them. So lineup would look something like this. You would have, it depends on if you trade pick 27 or not. In this instance, if you don't trade pick, or if you do trade pick 27, you would have Yakachonis running the point guard with Ryan Rollins at the shooting guard position, Nate Ament, Koa Pete, and either Yves Missy or Kelly Ware running that starting center position. And then off the bench, you have Ousmane Dieng, AJ Green, and Yaxel Lendenborg, as well as either Yves Missy or Kelly, whichever isn't starting, and then Nikola Jovic as well. It's a very young team. You can sign some young guys as well if you can maybe want to make an offer for them, but regardless, that's what more or less what the team's going to look like, unless you don't waive Jonathan Isaac and you keep Jonathan Isaac for some reason. I wouldn't. But Jonathan Isaac would also be on that bench as well if you didn't do that. But that's about it. Again, this was one that, like, I don't want to say I had fun with, but I took a lot of time with it because it was a bit of a struggle. And the Bucks have a very tall task on their hands regardless of the route they decide to go on. So props to the GMs and all of them for whatever they're going to do with this roster. But let me know what you think. Do you think that this is a good rotation or a good rebuilding idea for the Bucks? Or do you think they should go down a completely different route? Do you think that they can make trades like this, or do you think that they should just say screw it? Do you think they should go with Giannis as well? Do you think that Giannis should be a Buck going into next season, because I know a lot of people are torn, because I think that he should remain a Buck, because I'm a big fan of loyalty. I'm a big fan of stars sticking with their team. But I was just like, look, go get yourself a ring elsewhere, man. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. And once again, check out the TikTok, check out the Instagram, check out all that jazz. And until then, y'all, until next time, peace.